Hi, everyone, and welcome to THE Student Careers Week. I'm Jamie Ramacati, Head of Content for Student Events at THE. Today's webinar is hosted in partnership with Shorelight, and we'll be hearing from James Bonney, Managing Director of Adelphi International. James is going to talk about career options in STEM fields and share how an Adelphi University education can support you in pursuing a career in STEM. If you have any questions for James throughout the session, please type them into the Q&A box, and we'll try to get to some of those at the end of the session. James, thanks so much for joining us today, and I'm very happy to turn the stage over to you.
Thank you so much, Jamie. Pleasure to be here. Hello again. My name is James. As Jamie said, I'm here in Garden City, which is right outside New York City at Adelphi's campus. And I'm delighted to be chatting with you a little bit today about all things STEM, right? And some of the advantages of STEM. So we'll jump into it. But before I share my screen, I do have some slides. I just like to say that, generally speaking, I like to keep things a bit informal. So if you've got questions at any point, feel free to chat those along. As Jamie said, she'll be keeping an eye on the chat box. I'll be keeping an eye on it as well, and happy to try and answer questions along the way or wait till the end. So let's get started here. I'll share my screen. So I am, as I said a moment ago, here at Adelphi University. I am managing director of a program called Adelphi University International. This is a partnership with Shorelight Education and Adelphi University, the point of which is to provide opportunities for international students to come to the United States, to come to Adelphi University and study and be successful. And I've been here now going on 7 years. And in that time, STEM and the STEM fields have become a very hot topic of conversation. So I'm really delighted that for those of you joining today, you're interested to learn more because I have a few things to say. So we'll jump into it. Sorry. So we'll start with a bit of an overview, right? I don't want to assume that everyone knows exactly what STEM means. So we'll talk a little bit about the definition. What are some of the categories that fall under the umbrella term STEM? And then we'll jump right. Well, so what are some of those degrees? Because there are fields of study that are considered STEM fields that might not be obvious to some of you on the call right now. And then we'll talk, well, how is STEM impacting enrollment at universities? How is STEM impacting government policy here in the United States? How is STEM influencing growth markets in industry and job markets, and particularly in the wake of COVID? How are the STEM fields creating opportunities where they didn't previously exist? And then we'll finish up just talking a little bit about the future of STEM and what some smart and bright people think about STEM opportunities moving forward. Okay, so what is STEM, right? If you're on this call right now, you probably already know, but certainly always find it helpful to remind us a little bit of what we're talking about here. STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. These are the fields that share an emphasis on innovation. They share an emphasis on problem solving, critical thinking, and together they really make up an industry that is fast growing and creating opportunities, particularly for international students here in the United States. Most of these degrees have the science designation. So at the undergraduate level, it'd be a Bachelor of Science. At the graduate level, it'd be a Master of Science. But it's not always the case. So the kinds of degrees you're probably imagining, engineering degrees or biology degrees, these of course are considered STEM designated degrees, As you'll see in a minute, there are opportunities for those of you interested in STEM, but might not have the strongest quantitative skill set, like me, by the way. So I want to take a look, as I said a moment ago, well, so what are some of these degrees? I hope you can see all of this. I took this from using Adelphi University as an example, right? This is the university that I work for. This is the programs of study are ones that I'm familiar with. So we'll take a look. And this slide here is at the undergraduate level. And so you'll see degrees that you would probably expect to be STEM designated degrees, right? Biochemistry is the first one there. Biology, chemistry, physics. You'll see there's both a BA and a BS in mathematics. But there are some degrees you might not expect. You know, environmental studies is a STEM designated degree. And then we have a whole suite of programs within the communications school. So you have the traditional communications degree has been STEM designated by the Department of Homeland Security. You'll see within that school of communication, you have several concentrations that are also STEM designated. You have digital production and cinema studies. You have journalism and public relations. You have media studies, right? So there are opportunities within the STEM field for students interested that might not have the strongest ability in the quantitative field. This is also true at the graduate level. We'll take a look in a moment at some of our PG there stands for postgraduate, right? So at the master's and beyond level. And again, you'll see the degrees that you'd probably expect to be here. Business analytics. Now that's an interesting one because what it's doing is combining the degree out of the business school, which is very popular, but also infusing a quantitative component there. You'll see computer science probably makes sense, right? But you're also going to see healthcare informatics, exercise science, educational technology, which we'll talk a little bit about in a moment. And now we're evolving a new category of a master's in STEAM teaching and learning. So let's take a few minutes to just talk about one of these degree programs. I selected educational technology because it's certainly very close to my heart in terms of, you know, working every day with students and trying to leverage technology to provide learning opportunities for students both here in the United States and studying overseas. And also because it's not obviously to many people a STEM degree. I don't think one would immediately assume that a master's degree in educational technology would fall under the STEM designation by the Department of Homeland Security, but it does. And so with that comes very specific opportunities that we'll talk a bit about in a moment. But let's just spend some time talking about ed tech. So like many of you on the call today, COVID changed things. So before COVID, you know, before March of 2020, we were all, of course, using technology to make our lives easier. We were using technology to engage in learning exercises and just traditional the delivery of teaching opportunities and different modalities. But what happened in March of 2020 was that process was accelerated, right? The foot was pushed down on the gas pedal there pretty dramatically. And we shifted, you know, as a program administrator who works exclusively with international students here in the United States, we had to shift overnight from an primarily in-person delivery of education and teaching and learning to exclusively in the digital space, exclusively, right? We all went and earned our PhD in Zoom almost overnight, sort of feels like that. And so this industry of educational technology, in keeping up with that, also expanded and dare I say exploded overnight in terms of the opportunities and the need for people with an expertise in educational technology. So it's, prior to 2020, March of 2020, when you talked about ed tech, I think what people generally assumed was that these were individuals who would work sort of in the background of a school system to make sure that faculty and students have the resources they need, particularly at the K through 12. So what I mean by that is, here in the United States, meaning grade school through high school, you have yet to reach university. And that's no longer the case, with different industries like Web3, AI, blockchain technology, data science. The ed tech industry is growing at an exponential rate to meet the need that's now become the reality. And this is a sustained reality. We don't have any reason to expect that this is going to change anytime soon. And it's not just true, we call it ed tech, educational tech, but it's also true at the corporate level, right? How many webinars have I now watched from Apple as they're getting ready for their next, WWDC, or how many webinars, we're on a webinar right now, companies are having to shift rapidly to meet the need for delivery of information in whatever form it takes virtually, right? I threw, if you look at the right side there, the ed tech market in India is set to hit 5 billion by 2025. At the global level, ed tech valuation just hit under 90 billion in 2020, projecting 46% growth in the industry will happen in North America within 3 years. And as someone who works in education, as someone who utilizes these resources, I can tell you that that is absolutely the truth, and that's absolutely happening. And it's STEM designated. And so when we think of STEM in general as being a real growth driver at American universities in general, but also the industry sector, we can see some big changes here. I threw some bullets there on the side that really try and hammer home the point that what we're anticipating just in the next decade is right there. Jobs in science, technology, engineering, and math are projected to add 1 million positions between 2020 and 2030. Yet the experts and the industry experts seem to agree that we don't have enough graduates in those fields to meet the demand. The United States government is doubling down on funding for STEM programs, both domestically and for international students, at the same time. And one example of a way they've made STEM an area that they're interested in driving enrollment is what they did with OPT. So for those of you on the call that might not know what OPT is, that stands for Optional Practical Training. That's a fancy way of talking about internships for international students. And what they did was they made international students studying STEM degrees, they gave you an additional 2 years for a total of 3 years to work in the United States under the OPT designation. And if you look on the right side there and you see the graph, just in 2020 alone, 34% of all OPT students, meaning every single international student in the United States that's working after they completed their degree under OPT, 34% of all of them were under STEM designated programs. And that was in 2020. And so when we see the new numbers coming out soon, I assure you that it will be higher. And I just want to restate, and the reason that is the United States government recognizes the importance of students completing STEM degrees. And so what they do is they allow students to be eligible to work for 3 years instead of just 1 that would be under normal circumstances. So I threw this one up here. There's a lot of information on that screen, but these are some examples, just a few of the Department of Education's grants that are supporting STEM programs. There's a lot there, right? And then on the right side, just to show that, here in the United States and many parts of the world, we live in a very polarized political climate. But this is one area that, believe it or not, is bipartisan. So in 2019, the Trump administration, Trump invested $578 million in STEM education. And the Biden administration, the current administration, is continuing that with promises to prioritize STEM. And you'll see some of the grant opportunities on the left-hand side there. So this is driving enrollment at universities. This is driving a political bipartisan support at the United States government level. And it's also having outcomes for the job market. So, right, this is, most students, they say, well, this is great, this sounds great, but what's the net result in terms of employment after I complete my degree, after I complete OPT? What are the opportunities, maybe in the United States or even abroad, for me to then continue working? And so what this slide tries to do here is show some real numbers and real growth opportunity in different sectors. You can, some of these shouldn't surprise you, right? Computer hardware engineers and software developers, software developers in particular, you're going to expect a 22% job growth rate just in the next decade. 33% math and statistics. And now, I think of those under the umbrella term just data sciences. That's true here at the university too, right? The enrollment teams, university advancement teams, they're all relying on what we call big data to make informed decisions about policy, about strategy. How are we going to enroll more students, or how are we recruit more donors? We're going to look at what the information, what the data says. And these are people that are graduating from things like business analytics or data science programs, software developers. We expect to see, of course, industries like engineering continue to grow. But we're also, for the first time, seeing, in a while anyway, seeing the architectural programs grow. And well, if these programs are growing, what does it mean in terms of salaries? And if you look on the left there, pulled some salary information. The median annual salary for STEM is more than double non-STEM, right? So what that means is, if you're graduating university with a STEM degree, you're more likely to make almost double what your colleague with a non-STEM degree is going to make starting in the industries. So this is all great information. Well, what's the future look like? What do we have in store for us? And for those of us interested in STEM fields, the horizon only looks to be bigger, right? As society innovates, as technology advances, which it's constantly doing, doubling at the rate of every 10 years, we should only expect these industries to continue to grow. And we need people in those industries to propose solutions and understand the technology that will continue to drive what we're all doing. Really, at every sector, every work sector across the field, from business to education. The United States Bureau of Labor Statistics calls STEM careers tomorrow's job, emphasizing the importance of these unique industries. It's also true that there is a concerted effort, a concerted push to drive diversity within the STEM fields as well. So for those of you listening to my voice that might come from marginalized community or minority communities, there are a variety of opportunities out there, scholarship funding opportunities, to get you into the STEM fields. This is happening at the state level. This is happening within universities. This is happening really at the national level here in the United States as well. And I'll throw in a sort of hot off the presses point here before I open it up for any questions you might have. We only have a few more minutes left right now. So I'm happy to share that the business program here at Adelphi is one of the more in-demand programs for international students. That's true at the undergraduate level. That's also true at the graduate level. And in about fall of 2018, we developed what we call our Global MBA. That's out of our Manhattan campus. It ended up becoming one of our more popular degrees. But everything I just told you, I recognize it also as a truth. So we're trying to get ahead of the trend. And we're right now working on launching in fall of 2023 our STEM designated MBA that will differentiate our Manhattan program in a way I think very few schools, particularly in this area, are doing. So that's a way of saying we're putting our money where our mouth is, so to speak, and we anticipate this need will continue to grow. So with that, I think I'll stop sharing my screen and open it up to any questions that there may be.
James, thank you so much. Yes, if there are any questions, I'll just make a final call for questions to be put into the Q&A box. We'll give a second for students to submit any questions there before we wrap up. James, I wonder if you could also, just in the meantime, while we wait to see if there's any questions coming in, if you could give us a sense of trends you're seeing in terms of where students are coming from. I think, obviously your program for international students, I know that all of the Shorelight programs have a real focus on diversifying the campuses that they serve and making sure that the campus feels really like home for students coming from anywhere. But I do know that there will be students in our audience who think, well, I don't know anyone who's going to study at this program, or I'm not sure if anyone from my home country or from my area goes there. Am I going to feel comfortable there? Am I going to have the support that I need? So I wonder if you can just kind of touch on that in terms of, are you seeing any trends in terms of student applications, where students are coming from, but also maybe more broadly a little bit on student support services, particularly for students in programs at Adelphi?
Yeah, be happy to. So to talk a little bit about the trends, there's been a big shift over the past few years. I think not just at Adelphi, but it's true at most universities here in the United States. There was a heavy reliance on students coming in from China and India in particular. And so with the circumstances such as they are, the China enrollment has been down. And in many ways, that's allowed for the population that we're currently recruiting to be far more diverse. And so right now, we are still generating enrollment from South Asia, but also, Eastern Europe and North Asia, different parts of South America. So the demand for an American education, the demand for a degree from a United States institution is still high. And we're fortunate in that we're able to actually generate additional diversity. Now, we have a specific and a unique advantage here at Adelphi University, and that's it. We're right next to Queens County, right? And the reason Queens County, New York City, Queens, I mention it, is because it is the most diverse place on earth. More languages are spoken in Queens County than anywhere else on the globe. And so for a student that says, I'm going there by myself and I might not feel a sense of home, or I'm afraid I might get homesick. Good news is you've got two things to help you with that worry. One, we've got a dedicated staff here whose job it is to provide you with the resources and support you need to be successful as a student. But also, because if you're missing a flavor of home, you're 15 minutes away from a town that is going to be called Little fill in the blank, right? We've got Little Italy, we've got Chinatown, we've got Little India, and all the best food in the world, as authentic as you can imagine it to be. And one of the world's best mass transportation systems, right? So we were here in Garden City with a Long Island Railroad stop, a 7.5-minute walk from where I'm sitting right now. And then that's going to take you anywhere you want in the city, including JFK International Airport or LaGuardia, right? So for instance, if you were feeling homesick and you wanted to fly home for a weekend, you're only 10 minutes, 15 minutes from JFK, and then you're on a plane. This is something that a lot of students and a lot of parents of students are interested in hearing. So you've got every possible imagined flavor of home here in the area.
That's great. Very helpful. Thanks, James. Just before we wrap up, there is one question that's coming from the audience about scholarships. And, again, I know we're veering a little bit from the STEM specific topic today, but I think it's a really good one and one that students will be wondering about. Where can students find more information about scholarships? And I'd ask James if you can answer sort of broadly speaking about studying in the US, what are some good resources for students to look at, but then also specifically as it relates to Adelphi, where can they find information about funding opportunities for students?
So that, to keep it about STEM, as I mentioned, as I showed on that one slide, the United States government is investing heavily in the STEM fields. So if you were to just get on your computer and go Google the Department of Education STEM grants, you're going to find a whole series of links that some of them may apply directly to you, some of them may not, right? So you'll just have to take some time looking through. But if you're interested in studying at Adelphi University, I would encourage you to go to our website in the search function, powered by Google, like everything else. Just type in international students, you'll bring you to our page, and you can begin an application there, and you'll have the opportunity to speak with an enrollment services advisor. And at that point, you can inquire about scholarships. We have, I'll say this, an aggressive scholarship campaign right now to just drive enrollment into some of these programs. And so they're merit-based. So you'll have to, submit your application materials and see what you become eligible for. But it is an aggressive scholarship campaign that is matched by, grant funding and also private scholarships, again, that I would encourage you to use Google for.
Excellent. Thank you so much, James. Thanks for your time today. We're just about out of time, but we really appreciate you spending this time with us to tell us a little bit more about STEM and studying STEM and career options in STEM, but also a little bit about Adelphi. We really appreciate it. To our students in the audience, thanks for joining us. This session will be available on demand along with all of the other sessions from Careers Week. We have some really exciting sessions lined up tomorrow and Thursday, so please do take a look at the agenda, and we hope to see you at some of those upcoming sessions. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Cheers.